It's a really heavy realization when it hits you. Have you ever noticed that the person you love the absolute most is sometimes the exact same person who leaves you feeling the most emotionally drained? It's tough to admit, but if that feels familiar to you, I want to reassure you right out of the gate. The problem might not actually be your relationship itself. It's likely something else. Something happening very quietly, right underneath the surface.
What's genuinely fascinating about this specific kind of emotional drain is that it almost never happens after a huge, blow-up fight. It doesn't happen because someone did something terrible. It usually happens just after another completely ordinary day. We're sort of conditioned to think that exhaustion needs this big, dramatic reason, but the hidden truth here is actually far more subtle than that.
Picture this for a second. The kitchen is quiet. Michael walks in after work, drops his keys on the counter. Sarah looks up from her laptop and just asks, "Long day?" Michael says, "Yeah," and that's it. Notice that exchange for a moment. There's zero hostility. Nothing actually sounds wrong. But somehow, in that tiny interaction, both of them walk away feeling a little heavier than they did just a minute ago. Fast forward to bedtime, and they're sitting right next to each other on the bed, but emotionally, they feel like they're miles apart. If you've ever ended a perfectly normal day feeling strangely exhausted around the person you deeply love, you are absolutely not alone, because emotional exhaustion really begins when we carry around feelings that never quite find a safe place to land.
So many of us think relationship burnout comes from our busy schedules, right? It's the kids, the demands at work, the bills. And yeah, for sure, those things take a toll. But sometimes there is this completely different kind of tiredness that just quietly settles into the room. It's the exhaustion of constantly wondering, is this the right time to bring this up? If I say something, is it just going to start another misunderstanding? Should I honestly just let it go? It's this quiet, internal heavy lifting that you're doing all day, just carrying the weight of everything left unspoken.
And what happens is, little by little, your conversations just become incredibly carefully edited. Your real needs get a little quieter. Your true feelings just sort of stay locked inside. And it's wild, but psychologists have actually noted that our brains burn almost as much physical energy suppressing an emotion as they do processing a literal physical threat. I mean, no wonder you're tired. That is deeply exhausting. And honestly, the most heartbreaking part of all of this, it doesn't happen because the love disappeared. It happens because somewhere along the way, emotional safety slowly became uncertain. And the hardest part of this whole dynamic is that neither person usually even notices when it starts. It's just this really slow, quiet fade.
Let's look at how this actually sounds. Imagine Sarah says softly one evening, "I really miss us." Michael immediately jumps in and says, "What do you mean? We've been spending every single evening together." He's genuinely trying to reassure her. He is looking squarely at the facts on the calendar. But she's trying to describe a feeling, and the result of that? They both walk away from that conversation feeling incredibly disappointed and unseen. This happens way more often than we realize. One person is speaking the language of emotion, and the other is responding with logic.
And here is the thing. Neither of them is wrong. That is so absolutely crucial to understand. They aren't wrong, they are just answering two completely different questions. But that disconnect, that is exactly where the emotional connection quietly begins to fade away. It's not because they stopped caring for each other, it's just because they stopped feeling understood by each other. And when we don't feel understood, our bodies actually start to react.
Our nervous systems are brilliant, and they pay really close attention to tiny, tiny moments. Not the dramatic shouting matches, but the subtle shifts. It's that little sigh your partner makes right before answering your question. It's the delayed text. It's the distracted glance at a phone while you're trying to explain your day. It's that polite smile that you know doesn't actually reach their eyes. These little moments, they teach us something. Sometimes they signal, hey, my feelings are welcome here, but other times they teach us, you know what, I should probably just keep this to myself. And after enough repetitions of that, protecting ourselves just becomes totally automatic. We speak a little less honestly, we start anticipating the disappointment before we even open our mouths. That is what relationship burnout actually feels like. It is just quiet, emotional effort every single day.
So what is actually going on inside while all this is happening? Well, Michael starts noticing he's just always drained before he even pulls into the driveway. Not physically drained, but emotionally. He realizes he's literally been rehearsing conversations in the car. He's plotting out how to explain things without upsetting Sarah, meticulously choosing his words before she even asks him a single question. And Sarah? She's been doing the exact same thing on her end. She rereads her text messages 3 times before hitting send, she deletes sentences, she softens her real opinions, she throws in little fake smiley faces that she doesn't even feel just to manage the mood. Listen, neither of them is trying to deceive the other. They are both just desperately trying to avoid emotional pain. But ironically, that protective shell is exactly what keeps creating the very distance they're terrified of. Because true, real emotional intimacy, it isn't built by saying the perfect, polished things. It's built by feeling safe enough to say the imperfect, messy ones.
And this is right where our different attachment styles quietly step into the light. Some people, when they feel uncertain, they push to move closer. Others pull back and get quieter. Some people want to instantly solve the problem to make the anxiety go away, while others just want someone to sit there and be present with them in the mess. None of these responses make you a difficult person. They are just incredibly human ways of protecting a connection you care about. But the real trouble starts when protection replaces honesty, when just surviving a conversation becomes more important than actually experiencing it together. That is the exact moment love starts feeling surprisingly exhausting. Not because you're dealing with too much emotion, but because you're surviving on too little emotional safety.
Okay, so let's look at a way out of this cycle. I want to give you one really small, gentle repair you can try today. It's nothing complicated, I promise. The next time your partner shares something emotional or frustrating with you, step 1, just don't try to solve it first. Resist the urge. Step 2, pause, and just take one slow, intentional breath. And step 3, simply ask them, what felt the hardest about that for you?
That's it. Just pure, open curiosity. No fixing the problem, no defending your actions, no explaining away the logic. Just curiosity. Because honestly, feeling truly understood calms our nervous system down so much faster than finding the perfect, logical solution ever could. Sometimes, literally, just one safe conversation can completely change the emotional climate of your entire relationship. It just releases all that invisible tension you've both been carrying around in your shoulders.
You know, maybe that subtle lack of emotional safety is the real reason you've been feeling so tired lately. It isn't because you fell out of love. It's because you've both been carrying this massive, invisible emotional weight. You've been exhausting yourselves trying to protect the relationship, instead of just feeling free to actually live inside it. And those are two very, very different things. Healing doesn't require these massive, cinematic grand gestures. It really just begins with one honest moment, one gentle question, one conversation where neither of you feels like you have to put on a performance.
Because true emotional safety isn't something that just magically appears when life gets easier. It's created in the trenches, when two people slowly learn that they can bring their real, unfiltered selves into the same room again and again. So perhaps tonight, instead of lying awake wondering how to fix the mechanics of your relationship, maybe just ask yourself something a little simpler. Ask yourself, does the person I love feel emotionally safe bringing their whole messy heart to me? Just sitting with that single question can quietly begin to change everything.
If our conversation today resonated with you and you're feeling ready to go a little deeper into transforming your relationship through self-awareness, I've actually written a Kindle book called Harmonious Marriage: Elevate Your Marriage with Self-Awareness. It's really designed to help couples gently break these negative patterns and build that deep emotional safety step by step. And if you happen to be drawn to applying ancient wisdom to our very modern relationships, I'd invite you to explore my second book, Mantras of Love, based on Hindu wisdom. You can easily find links to both of those right down in the description below. Also, if this explainer helped you feel a little more understood today, please consider subscribing to ReframeUs so we can keep exploring this together. But right before you go, I want to leave you with one final thought to carry with you. If your relationship has accidentally become a place where you go to hide, rather than the place you go to be truly known, what is one small mask you feel safe enough to take off tonight?